Welcome everyone to another episode of the Shaman's Way podcast. As always, this episode comes from the teachings of our amazing friend and shaman in residence, Kriket. We hope you're enjoying these podcasts as much as we enjoy making them, and I'd like to take just a moment to ask you if you would please leave us a rating and a comment in iTunes or whichever podcast player you're listening to us from. Giving us a rating and sharing this podcast with others is the biggest way you can tell us that you like our show. Now, without further ado, on with the episode.
Well, hello, my constant listeners, my almost constant listeners, and my brand new listeners. Thank you for tuning into Shaman's Way and to listening to me, Miss Kriket. This is our 75th podcast. I'm so very excited to be able to share this with you. We have sat together for hours now and discussed different aspects of shamanism. You have given me your time when I have gone off on tangents, some of them making sense, some of them not. You have given me your time to share some of my deepest thoughts and ruminations on shamanism and spirit work. Today, however, what I really want to talk about on my silver anniversary is why, and why really is for the love of it. Why do I practice shamanism? Really, because I love it. Second, it is fascinating. Third, because as you all know, if I don't practice it, I will die. And fourth, simply because I have found my calling. I have found my vocation. I am not searching for what am I meant to do in this lifetime. I'm not searching for those aspects of the question. I know that you know that when I first started, the very first time I laid down on the floor and I journeyed, I knew that I had come home. But what does that mean now, 25 years later? That is a question I have been pondering for days, because I knew I wanted to talk about what I loved about it, but I really wanted to dig and excavate within my own self to put into words what my passion is and why I have this passion. It has been an avenue for me to explore self. It has been an avenue for me to understand self. It has been an avenue for me to find a voice, to become a storyteller, to become a teacher, to embrace and integrate wonderful pundits' theories, have fascinating conversations, meet spirits that have altered my worldview forever, have experiences that have left me changed forever. I am infinitely curious where my next journey will take me, infinitely curious where my next inspiration will come from. What will Spirit teach me now? What will Spirit give me now? Not give as in a gift, but what nugget of truth, what nugget of reality is Spirit going to give me now? These are some of the questions that I ask myself. And these are some of the things which I've been pondering this week. 25 years later, what does home look like? I have I've talked about some of the things in my spirit world that are continuous and constant. There are spirits that have met me continuously and constantly. I have also experienced loss, but that's part of life. We can't live on this earth without experiencing loss, whether it's the loss of a loved one, the loss of a pet, the loss of an idea, the loss of blah, 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 blah. whatever your loss is. Right? I'm not trying to minimize your loss, but anyway, this is about my celebration. So, from that perspective, my home is ever shifting, and there are things which are the same. So my anchor spot, I've talked many times about how my anchor spot has shifted and changed and looks different over the years. And it still is shifting and changing right now. Right now it's in such a state of flux, I truly never know what I'm going to get when I get into my anchor spot. However, home has become bigger. My heart is my home now, and that has become bigger. My psyche is now a welcome part of myself and my home, and I love to explore my psyche. I think for me, the journey of shamanism in the home perspective has given me permission to explore my own house. Now, house, I take from the Jungian perspective of the house representing the consciousness. So the basement and the sub-basement being those really very unconscious precognitive aspects of self. And then the middle floors of the house are the aspects of the day-to-day reality. And then the top of the house, or the higher up you go, the higher into the unconscious or the superconscious you go. And the spirit world is very similar to that as well, in some regards, but not in all regards. So my house, my psyche, I've been able to use journeys and healing processes to explore the sub-basement, to explore the foundation, to explore the soil of my soul before things were erected, and to have the courage and the tools to excavate parts of my soul and remove the topsoil, remove the second layer of soil, and go down as deep as I possibly can to explore or find the nuggets of self that are integral and possibly functioning unconsciously and messing up my world. So it is the opportunity to find exaltation and great joy. It is also the opportunity to find some of the most hideous and harmful and darkest aspects of myself. So in coming home, I have learned that being home within myself can be comfortable. Exploring my emotional relationships can be comfortable and uncomfortable. Exploring the psyche of another human being. Fascinating! Absolutely fascinating. However, in the exploration of my home and feeling like I'm coming home, when we get into our house and our house is empty, there is this desire to bring pieces of ourself home. So whether you have a tiny home and are a minimalist, or whether you have a huge home and are a maximalist, we all have things which relate to self and to the health of self. In exploring my own self and exploring the psyche of others, I was drawn to comparative mythology. My opening person, or the person I explored first in comparative mythology, was Joseph Campbell. When I began to explore depth psychology, when I began to explore neuroscience, the neuroscience of shamanism, when I began to explore the anthropology of consciousness, that was all in an effort to understand how the psyche drives itself. If I'm seeing XYZ in a journey, what does that mean? And so if I experience different colors, what do those colors represent? Are they related to the chakras? Are they related to trauma colors? Are they related to, whatever they're related to? So I look into that aspect. In order to understand myself, and looking through comparative mythology, I began to see similarities, and I've talked about this before, so I won't go on very long about it, but the similarities in the world stories and the differences. It also helped me to understand that there are different worldviews. In recognizing different worldviews, it gave me a much broader worldview. So my home now has become broader than it was 25 years ago. My sense of home in relationship to how do I understand the world tree or the world mountain, based on stories from Nepal, to stories of the cypress trees, to even the stories in the Bible of the cedar trees or the trees that built the Temple of Solomon. Trees have been represented in different mythologies. Even the cross. The cross is the representation of two worlds intersecting. That's the medicine wheel. That's the center of the medicine wheel, where the red road and the blue road come to intersect. So we even have the whirling dervish, not the whirling dervish, but the original swastika, the original turning of the four directions, the turning of the winds, and that cross point in the center of that cross point, that holding point. So these different things are representative. If an animal shows up in a dream or in a journey, what does that animal mean? And so the book that I use is totally escaping me at the moment, but it is an animal guide that I think Ted Andrews' book. That's really what helped me to recognize some of the different animals. I was always interested in nature. I've always been a hiker. So I am very familiar with tracks and trails and how to track something when a different trail is, and paying attention to the environment around me. That has been very important. That skill has translated exceptionally well in the spirit world, because tracking is important. Understanding where you are is very important. When I'm journeying for someone else, I'm not journeying in my spirit world. I'm journeying in their spirit world. And sometimes I go on journeys specifically to enter into another person's spirit world, which is an entirely different event and requires, for me, it requires a different portal. But that's a whole other story. But that too is fascinating. That too keeps me infinitely curious and infinitely moving. So I want to understand the stories that bring in our beginnings from the Sky Nation. I want to understand stories that bring our genesis, our creation from the depths of Earth. I want to explore those stories of the magical beginnings of human. I want to explore the stories of the relationship between the animal world and the human world, when the veils were not there, when we had animal children, when we had shape-shifting. What does that mean in the psyche? How does that still play out in our journeys today? How do these ancient myths still move forward in our life today? And they do. Fascinates me, keeps me curious all the time. What a wolf means to you may be completely different to what a red-maned wolf in Ethiopia means to an Ethiopian. There could be totally different stories. What a dog means to you here could be very different from the wild dogs that are found in Central Africa, and even more different from the wild dogs that I think they're called Diegos. Somebody fill me in if I'm wrong, but they are the original dog, and there's only one island just off of Australia where they have the purest dogs, and I think they go back 5,000 years without any other dog coming in and crossing. So they're one of the oldest dogs in the world. And why do I bring that up? Because their relationship to that dog has a very different relationship from your golden doodle. It has, that sort of thing. So we have an ever-evolving story and mythology. But we also have to pay homage to the beginning and where the precipice of that story begins. What is it leaping off of? What does it come from? And that helps me understand the human psyche. It also helps me to understand the spirit world. For me, there are many different terrains. There are the underground caverns. There are the catacombs underneath large trees. There are mountain ranges. There are jungles. There are moonscapes. There are starscapes, etc., etc., etc. So my home has become broader in the exploration of the worlds that are presented to me. I never know what I'm going to experience when I come into a journey, and no two journeys are ever the same. No two human souls, obviously, but maybe not, ever have the same journeys. I have been doing soul retrievals for years, and no two journeys have ever been the same. And almost every single journey, I come out thinking to myself, well, I've never seen that before. And what other experience can you have where you come out 25 years later still going, wow, I've never seen that before? That's pretty cool. I think that's really, really just an awesome part of this experience. Understanding human behavior has given me a greater insight and compassion and sense of peace towards not only myself, but towards other humans around me. Paying attention to world politics is very important to me. Paying attention to the world environment is very important to me. Paying attention to the global economy, the microeconomies, the individual country economies, those are all very important to me, but they weren't very important to me before the attack in the U.S. on the World Trade Center. And the reason why that became so pivotal for me was when I did a series of journeys after September the 11th, 2001. I did journeys in the following 7 days. And the things that I saw, the warnings that I heard, the prophetic messages that have almost all come to pass have what made me become more globally aware. If that event, if I hadn't journeyed to the World Trade Center, if I hadn't journeyed to the souls, if I hadn't journeyed to the possible outcome, I don't know if I would be as focused on the world as I am. And the reason that I'm more focused on the world now than I was before is because those journeys taught me more than anything else, at that moment anyway, how absolutely interrelated everything is. So when I journeyed before George Bush took the war into Iraq, I didn't understand much of the mythology of that part of the world. When I journeyed to that part of the world just prior to the first bombs going off, what I saw was very prophetic. What I saw coming out of the earth became incredibly prophetic. The damages that the bombs would do and the subsequent Middle East uprising all came to pass. And those journeys all opened up my eyes to the intricacies of human relationship and the intricacies of human relationship to everything. So from my perspective, I want to know how the soul of the world is doing. And the soul of the world has so many facets as it has human beings, as it has cultures, as it has expressions. So coming home when recognizing shamanism has, as I said, has given me a broader worldview, and it has helped me become invested in the worldview. I'm invested in knowing how souls are around the world. Do I interfere with things? I've learned over the years that time is going to travel on, and although I have been given many gifts and many powers, I still recognize I am just a speck of sand on the timeline. And that although I can move and maneuver things, many things go on and will go on with or without my assistance. Spirit taught me or said something very invaluable to me. Absolutely everything you do matters, and absolutely none of what you do counts. Or something to that effect. I can't remember right off the top of my head. But basically, everything you do, it really, really matters, but absolutely nothing that you do helps. So continue to do what you're doing, but recognize the world is going to go on with or without you. Recognize that you can change little aspects of it, but ultimately the timeline isn't going to shift simply because you do X, Y, Z. I think that was also a very sobering moment and very sobering time, and also very humbling. So shamanism has brought me to my knees over and over and over again, and humbled me in so many ways. Humbled me by the graciousness of spirit, and humbled me by the fierceness of spirit. Humbled me by the compassion of spirit, and humbled me by the rage of spirit. When we had that huge tsunami and it wiped out in the Philippines 250,000 people, and the journey that I did shortly after that, when I went to Gaia, when I went to the oceans and the earth, she just said to me, I don't know what's wrong, I just stretched my foot. And that was the spirit's explanation of a 9.0 earthquake and the huge tsunami that followed after, and the incredible loss of human life. In broadening my home and coming home, I also began to come home to my abilities with psychopomp. Psychopomp is a beautiful exploration of what we can do shamanically, what we can do compassionately. We can compassionately move within the land of the dead or into a place that has had a natural disaster, and if given permission, help the spirits or the souls of that place to cross over. Very beautiful work, can be very dangerous work. Another thing I love about shamanism is that it's exciting. I don't always know what I'm going to get into. I know I've talked about this before, but I can have very warrior, very battleistic journeys, and I really know that that's what my training is for. And in that essence, I have journeys which are, to me, very exhilarating, but I don't share a lot of the details because I know that what I particularly find exhilarating, other people might find quite frightening. We don't live in a culture that revels in, the wars or revels in combat, but some cultures, when the shamans sit around, or the dream interpreters or the dreamers sit and discuss what they talked about, the bigger the battle, the more juicier it is, the more excited the crowd becomes, because you're the shaman or the dreamer or the dream interpreter or whoever it is doing this on behalf of everybody. So when we do the psychopomp work, if we're allowed, we do the work on behalf of everybody. And sometimes we encounter experiences that are not always pleasant, but that also excites me. I really love that I have a retinue of beautiful weapons, and I love that I have been given different gifts from different spirits over the years to keep me physically safe from the battles in which I have been in. It also gives me great pleasure to be able to fight so hard or dig so deep or go so far for a human soul piece and bring it back for wholeness and for integration. It really makes me feel as though I am, for that moment, truly invested in that person's health and in that person's well-being. And if the psyche, their psyche, allows me into the chaos, into the storm, into the battle that their soul is feeling, then I think that soul really trusts me. I think if a soul is willing to show me its ugliest, its meanest, its most dangerous, then I think that soul has been waiting for me and my particular skill set. That's what I think. Another thing that I love about it is my never-ending quest for knowledge. I had lunch with a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine this week, and he said to me, if you can explain shamanism to me in one sentence, well, actually, I'll just give you 2. And if you can explain it in 12 words or less, you get better points. He's such a Virgo. No offense to the Virgos, but my friend is such a Virgo. Anyway, so I accepted the challenge, and I said to him that shamanism is a way of seeking information and knowledge. And that really is what it was really the essence of what shamanism to me boils down to. As much as the exciting journeys are, there is that never-ending quench for knowledge. And I really enjoy reading other people's thoughts and other people's opinions. Side note, I really love the ideas of Carl Jung. However, I don't understand a lot of Carl Jung's original writings. So in order to understand Carl Jung, I read other people's interpretations of his work, and I am ever so grateful that they can read his language. I don't speak every language, and sometimes I don't speak astrophysics. I don't speak quantum physics language. I don't speak the language of mathematical equations. So I always really appreciate the people in the world who are able to understand things that I cannot, and then bring it to me or distill it to a form that I can understand, or that I can conceptualize, or I can integrate. And that has been a really important love for me, my love and appreciation for other human beings doing heavy lifting, where then I take it and I do my own sort of heavy lifting with it. I have a very small library, and because I use my public library, and therefore I don't have to buy a lot of books. But the most of my shamanic books are anthropological texts, and an anthropological series of journals called Shaman, which are published out of Helsinki, and they are absolutely fascinating. So I am still forever interested in learning about other cultures, how other cultures work shamanically or spiritually, in recognizing that we came to a place somewhere in the evolution of ourself where we decided that we were separate from the whole. And in that separation from the whole, we began to create ways to regain our relationship or our connection to the whole. So we have myths where we had a language with the animals and we understood the animals. Some of the progenitor myths talk about the relationship between humans and taking a bear bride or taking a bear husband, or we have various myths where the animals and the humans intermingled and created a race of beings which were half human and half spiritual animal. And what does that mean, and where does that come from, and how does that apply to shamanism? Again, exploring the whole. How does that apply to Jung? How does that apply to consciousness? What does that say about what we're longing for? What does that say in our journeys? What does that say in our books? How do other people interpret our separation from the whole? Shamanism has given me a journey and a path to reconnect, connect more deeply with the whole, whatever the whole is to you. The whole to me is that all-encompassing sense of whole, including the void and chaos. As I continually grow and shift and move, I really do still do it for the love of it. I still love to teach. I still am passionate when I storytell. I still love to do one-on-one work. I still love to sit in front of this microphone and share with you my passions, my joys, my questions, sometimes I'm confused and I bring it to you and I say, I'm confused about this. Sometimes I have very definite opinions because I've encountered that 17,000 times in the spirit world. So the love of it, the love of it is I can't imagine my life without this. I can't imagine having the skill set to bring forward into my day-to-day relationships with the people that I work with the people that I interact with the people that I see and meet in the grocery store. It has helped me to become a more compassionate being. It has helped me become a more open-minded person. It has helped me to become a more humble being. And it has helped me become a very strong warrior. Shamanism has helped me find my voice, not only as a teacher, but as a singer. It has helped me find rhythm in the sounds of the drums, rhythm in the sounds of the rattles, rhythm in the sounds of the feet. It has empowered me and given me inspiration for ceremony, for different ways of unwinding, for different ways of experiencing our own mental health, physical health, spiritual health, mental health. I haven't even touched on the medicine wheel, which you all know I absolutely love and adore. It is the simplest, most complex form of understanding human relationship to time, space, and self that I've encountered. I like the exploration of ritual in other cultures. What does the ritual of this look like? Now I realize taking a ritual out of a culture it's like taking the seed out of an orange. You don't get the taste of it. You just get the sight of the seed. I recognize that. However, I'm also very curious about process. I'm curious, what is another person's process? I have friends who practice witchcraft and who practice Wicca, who practice Druidry, who practice heathenry. And I want to know, what is the process that your tradition goes through to heal this, or to understand this, or to reconcile this? I want to compare what I do with what other people do, because I am enriched when I speak to other people. Although sometimes I think that I could, possibly not raise my inner eyebrow so much, but that's just me. Sometimes when you get to be a little older and you're a little longer in the tooth, sometimes I don't have patience for some of the newer ideas that come about. Anyway, that's not even relevant. And I apologize if I offended someone. In this journey of this path of shamanism and finding my own Finnish roots and finding my own stories and finding my own Vainamoinen and finding, how that shaman, how the creator shamans, the first shamans, exploring that has been really important to me. Recognizing that there are many of us on this path has also been a joy for me. Exploring and sharing this path has been a joy for me. For the love of it, simply because I love it. And there are so many facets to what I love. Not only mythology, not only psychology, not only the journeys, not only the battles, not only my finely tuned knives and swords, not only all of that, but all of that plus a never-ending, continuous relationship. I will never understand all of this. Just like the medicine wheel. I have been studying the medicine wheel probably since 1994, 1996, and I still don't understand all of it. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing that by the time I die, whatever age that is, I will not fully understand the medicine wheel. There will still be aspects of it that I will still be exploring. That fascinates me and that excites me. This path of shamanism, it will never get old, because it can't, because it's ever evolving. It's ever incorporating. Shamanism is a base for many different traditions and many different ideologies, and as a result of that, I can bring different things into my practice, understanding the chakras, understanding the relationship of the psyche to the chakras, understanding the world tree and how the world tree is representative of the physical body, understanding that the world tree is in one place, but also within myself, and the paradox of that relationship. The duality, the triplicality, and the multi-reality of shamanism fascinates me. It's a multiverse. It's not a universe. The various layers of the spirit world. I haven't found the bottom of the underworld, and I haven't found the top of the upper world. I haven't found the edges of the middle world either. I haven't explored every path, every tree, every mountain, every under place. I haven't, not yet. That's amazing to me. It is an ever-evolving, ever-continuous story. And that story emboldens me. That story changes me. That story wounds me. That story heals me. That story brings me to the break of my emotional place and brings me exaltation and kiss of spirit. It is such a beautiful journey, but it is not without its pitfalls. It's not without its trials. It's not without its tribulations. It certainly is not for the faint of heart, and it certainly isn't for water skiers on the lake of spirituality. If you want a deep practice and shamanism speaks to you, I encourage you to take it between your teeth and grab hold of it and don't let it go. Or your hands, or whatever works for you. And if it's not for you, thank you for listening, and thank you for giving me your ear, and thank you for giving me the time to express what is passionate for me. In this 75th podcast, in this silver anniversary, I am just absolutely, or 20? I am absolutely given over to the joy that I still have. I'm absolutely given over to your comments, to your feedback, to your questions. I am forever enamored by this spirit and by this walk. And I hope that I have given you just a small taste of what I absolutely love about shamanism. And there are many different things that I haven't spoken about, but there are also 74 previous podcasts that I'm sure I have said a few things in. So it is with the biggest smile on my face that reaches into, through, and out my eyes that I bid you a fond farewell. And until we meet again, thank you for listening. Thank you for giving me your ear and your time. And I greatly, greatly appreciate you.
Thank you again for joining us here on the Shaman's Way podcast. If you have any questions, would like to make a request for a future episode, or if you're looking for other shamanic resources, including free drumming tracks, please visit us at shamansway.net. Until the next episode, be well, everyone.